spooky. Oh, look who came for some love and cuddles. He is like the mascot for this whole spooky season. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Matriarch Astrology. I'm Ileana, and today we are diving into a very, still, as you can see, spooky theme, yet fascinating topic on sleep paralysis and astral projection. And of course, this is astrology, so we are going to see if we can spot the indicators of these experiences within a birth chart. And of course, I do want to mention that this is not to bring any type of fear or say that if you don't have any of these main things that I look for, that you will not experience sleep paralysis or astral projection, or that you can't astral project. This just is something that I look for when I'm looking in a birth chart for these type of experiences. And also, this is not to say that if you have it, that for sure you will have these type of experiences, or to be afraid of these things happening or occurring, because I know that there can be a lot of fear tied in specifically to the topic of sleep paralysis. So what exactly is sleep paralysis or astral projection? So for those who aren't familiar, sleep paralysis happens when you wake up and you feel like you cannot move. Now, I've experienced this personally, and the way I experience is that I'm fully awake and I'm aware of my environment, but I cannot move my hands. I cannot open my eyes. I know some people say that they can open their eyes and look around the room. I personally have not been able to open my eyes other than like slightly, and I can see a little bit, but for me, I've experienced it where I can't open my eyes either. And of course, like, you can't move anything of your body. So it's a pretty scary experience because you're fully awake, but then you come to the realization that you're not able to move. And on the other hand, astral projection is more of an out-of-body experience where the consciousness seems to travel outside of the body. And this can happen often during sleep or even meditation. Now, both of these experiences can be linked to astrology's more mystical houses, those houses being the 8th and 12th house. And not only mystical houses, but also certain planets and aspects as well. So let's explore how you can find these indicators in your birth chart. Let's start with the 12th house, the house of the subconscious mind, the unseen, and dreams. This house is like a gateway to the astral plane. If you have key planets like Pluto or Neptune, you are more naturally attuned to the spiritual realm while sleeping. Now, Neptune in the 12th house will dissolve the boundaries between our world and other dimensions, making sleep paralysis more likely or astral projection more likely. Of course, this can be enhanced if it is in a water sign, but it doesn't particularly need to be in a water sign either. And with Pluto, there can be more of that astral projection type of experiences also in the 12th, because of course this is related to 8th house topics when we're working with Pluto, and that's more related as well to out-of-body experiences when we look at 8th house topics. Next up, we have the 8th house, the house associated with transformation, death, rebirth, and the occult. This house also taps into hidden or mystical energies. So if you have, let's say, the moon or the planet Mars here, you're likely to experience intense emotions during sleep, which can lead to possibly triggering astral projection or sleep paralysis. And especially with the moon being in the 8th house, which is a very big psychic indicator and paranormal experience indicator, which I did mention in my other 2 videos about paranormal experiences and psychic abilities in the birth chart. But the moon being here can bring very vivid and transformative dreams, while as opposed to Mars, which might push you towards more active astral projection experiences. And that is because Mars brings the energy and the action. Now we're going to have a look next here at key planetary aspects. And this is because some aspects are prone to either activating, especially during any type of transit that may bring about these mystical experiences, or activated in a way to where it happens at a certain age and then moving on from that age it continues. Like, for example, for me, I did have a transit that once that transit came, that's when I began having sleep paralysis, and since then I've never really not had it, but it has turned more into astral projection, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. So the first one we're going to talk about is aspects between the moon and Neptune. And having this type of aspect between the moon and Neptune really opens you up to this mystical type of dream world. So aspects between Neptune and the moon, like the trine, sextile, opposition, and conjunction, your dream life can likely be very vivid, especially with conjunctions or trines. So then that causes the boundaries between wakefulness and sleep to be blurred, because again, Neptune blurs the boundaries on whatever it is touching. And this is likely where sleep paralysis is to occur when you're caught between those two states, between sleep and being awake. Next up, we have an aspect between Mercury and Pluto. And I would also look to see if Mercury is either in the 8th or the 12th house, or if Mercury is ruling the 8th or the 12th house and is receiving that aspect from Pluto as well. Mercury, the planet of the mind, taps in and receives energy from Pluto. You can naturally be able to dive in to those unhidden type of realms during sleep, which can bring the potential for exploring the astral realms consciously. And this can be more where people do it when they're in a meditative state versus sleep. Again, it really depends on other things and where this is placed, but I've heard of people being able to astral project not only in sleep, but also through meditation. Another one I would look at would be Mercury and Uranus aspects. Now, with those aspects, I'm looking again at an easier way of doing it. Of course, I would look at the trine and sextile, but I wouldn't eliminate, especially conjunction and also squares and oppositions. Although I would say like with squares and opposition, it might be a little bit more difficult or something that you need to work on and balance with, as opposed to, let's say, the trine that makes it a lot more smoother and easier to achieve. But still, any aspect is what I'm looking for, especially the type of orb and how tight it is. The next aspect I would look at would be Uranus to the moon. And this is because Uranus, of course, brings sudden and unexpected experiences. And if Uranus is aspecting the moon, you might have sudden out-of-body experiences. Of course, this could be through type of meditations or sleep or other altered states of consciousness, like when people take psychedelic medicines. Now, when I'm looking at these aspects between Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus, I would also see if they are aspecting the ruler of the 8th and 12th house, particularly most the 8th when it comes to sleep paralysis type of experiences, or astral projecting through sleep. And then the 8th would be where people may intentionally try to astral project or try to do it through other type of experiences like meditation or by working with psychedelic medicines. Of course, especially if we're looking at water in these houses. So if we're looking at fire rising signs being Leo, Aries, and Sagittarius. But of course, it doesn't have to be. That's just something that kind of gives it a little bit more maybe ease to do so. Or if Pisces is strong within the chart, and especially if your moon or rising sign is in the sign of Pisces. And bonus points if you have a Pisces moon in the 8th house. Having that could mean that you are more likely to experience, or can be more likely to experience, sleep paralysis or astral projection. I would also say moon if you have a moon in Pisces in the 12th as well. So I wouldn't say only in the 8th. I think the 8th makes it really strong and kind of makes it more possible to be able to occur, but I wouldn't X out the moon in Pisces being in the 12th. And this is because Pisces is naturally more connected to spiritual experiences and connected to altered states of consciousness. Another thing I would look at probably would be the phase of the moon, especially if it's in that 8th or 12th. I would look at the phase of the moon as well, especially if I'm looking at the balsamic lunar phase or the disseminating lunar phase. And I also have a video on lunar phases, if you haven't checked that out as well, where I go over all the lunar phases and certain things that those things might indicate, especially if you are a night chart. But I'm not trying to get off topic, so let's just stay on our topic here of sleep paralysis and astral projection. Now, the next thing I would look at would be our transits, of course, and particularly transits to the 8th or 12th house. And these transits can, in a sense, activate that 12th house. For example, if Neptune transits the 12th house, your connection to the spiritual realm may be heightened or activated in a sense. And these are periods where you might notice more frequent episodes of sleep paralysis or astral projection. Now, when I started experiencing sleep paralysis was around the age of 17, and I had Uranus in the 12th transiting. However, it was in Pisces, which is a water sign. Again, that's why I say to look to see if it is a water sign, because it kind of makes it a little bit more heightened. And then after that, Neptune came in and transited years later and still experiencing sleep paralysis. But with Neptune, I think especially once it was well in, I started having more of astral projection, which is something that I've been able to do since recently. I think the first time I was able to astral project was actually last year, and that's still where I see this Neptune transit there, and it's a lot more positive as opposed to the more scary, sudden, unexpected type of experiences I had with Uranus being there. But now I experience it more as something that I'm able to navigate through more easier, and I'm no longer having these scary sleep paralysis experiences where things are moving around and you kind of hear things going on in the room and it's very scary and intense. Now I'm able to just wake up in that in-between state, and instead of hearing things and freaking out, I'm just able to roll out in a sense. And I've used that way because I've found that by rolling, or if I try to roll myself, that's at least for me personally how I'm able to come out. I've heard of people being able to use a cord and kind of flow upwards. For me, I just find it easier if I just roll and I'm able to just kind of float out and then float about that way. And as I have mentioned in the video, I also have aspects between Uranus and Neptune to not only my moon but also my sun, and opposing the planet that rules the 12th house as well. But I did see, of course, sort of like an activation when I got Uranus there in the 12th, and then I would say another type of activation once Neptune transited into the 12th, and that sort of activated to be more of a astral projection type of experience. And I feel like they're both the same thing. It's just an experience of the same thing. It's like the same coin. It just has two different heads. And to me, it's still the same state from when I had sleep paralysis. So I still wake up in a frozen state. It's still the same sensations, but now I'm feeling, I can hear almost and feel the vibration of the sleep paralysis, where it feels like something is like vibrating or I'm vibrating, but it's like minus the scary things going on. That's the only difference, is that I no longer hear scary things or see things, or out of the, the little bit that I could open my eyes, I could see like shadows. But that's no longer the experience, but it's still the physical sensation, and it's still the same type of thing where you wake up suddenly and you can't move. It's just a different way of experiencing it. Also, I would say maybe Pluto transiting through the 12th as well. So I'd say Neptune, Uranus, or Pluto transiting the 12th. Particular, I'd look mainly at 12th, but then I would also look at the 8th as well. And I just want to say that if you or anybody else have experienced sleep paralysis, I do know that it can be very unsettling at first, to put it in a light way, because I had the very intense experience, and mine's was, I wouldn't really call it unsettling. I'd call it more terrifying and very stressful. But the purpose of this video is to really help you understand and see where we can see these indicators or these type of things in our own birth charts. And in a sense, it could help you understand why these things may happen and how to navigate them. Now, I found that with the Neptune transit, not right away, but eventually I began to be able to navigate it. And after a lot of healing with psychedelic medicines, I've been able to transform that experience and been able to, I guess, in a certain way, activate a certain level almost. I'm not really quite sure if it's a second level, if it's just the progression to astral projection. So I would say it's like the entryway, and then going up is where you get towards astral projection. But of course, that's just my own experience on me personally, because I have had this experience. And I've also looked at the chart of my own sister who has also experienced sleep paralysis. And I see, again, the connection between Uranus and the moon, the connections between Neptune and those houses. So I have been able to see those not only in my chart, but in the chart of people that I do know have had these experiences. So it's pretty cool and validating to see the connection show up in the birth chart. And I think that the key is to embrace these lessons that come with these type of experiences. And to me personally, I think that's just to not be afraid of the unknown and not be afraid of what I don't understand, and not take that as something to turn away from or reject in any way, and just looking at it a little bit more with curiosity and not so much fear. I think that working and healing with types of medicines, spiritual, psychedelic medicines, helped me do that, because it brought a lot of stuff to the surface that I didn't necessarily want to look at or engage with, but it was bringing it up for a reason. But that's not the topic of this video about medicines. But I think that allowed me to then experience this, or be able to experience this in a different way. Thank you so much for watching. And if you've had experiences with astral projection or sleep paralysis, I would love to hear your experiences in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe for more astrology videos. Until next time, stay mystical and curious.